Human engineering has built civilizations, but a single misplaced calculation can burn a multi-billion-dollar empire to the ground in a matter of seconds. In this video, you'll see how an elite rail corporation spent over $20 billion ordering thousands of state-of-the-art trains, completely forgetting to check if they actually fit through the centuries-old stations they were built for. And later, how cutting a basic safety adhesive by just a few fractions altered a massive highway network into a deadly structural trap. Before we continue, make sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button to join Wall Street Wolfie. Let us know in the comments below exactly what you think about these insane engineering mistakes as we count them down. Number 5. In 2006, Germany broke ground on Berlin-Brandenburg Airport with a budget of 2.83 billion euros and a target opening of 2011. The airport finally received its operational license in May 2020 and opened for commercial traffic on 31st October 2020, 14 years after construction started and 29 years after official planning began. The final cost landed between 6.5 and 7.3 billion euros. The central failure was a smoke extraction system unlike anything built before. Instead of extracting smoke upward through conventional chimney principles, engineers chose to extract smoke downward through 18 kilometers of underground ducts, a system that had no precedent anywhere in the world, chosen because they didn't want chimney outlets breaking up the clean glass ceiling of the terminal. The system simply did not work. Then came a detail so extraordinary it belongs in a screenplay. In 2014, it was revealed that Alfredo De Mauro, the chief planner for the airport's fire protection system, was not a qualified engineer, but an engineering draftsman. He admitted this, saying everyone thought he was a proper engineer, and he didn't contradict them. His mistakes cost hundreds of millions of dollars to fix. At the time of its scheduled first opening, inspectors reviewing the airport reported some 120,000 defects, including fire safety issues, and around 170,000 kilometers of cable installed dangerously wired. The escalators were too short. The roof was twice the authorized weight. 3,000 smoke detectors went missing, then reappeared. Doors were numbered incorrectly, so rescue services couldn't find the correct rooms. The Wall Street lesson here is precise. The airport didn't become expensive because construction materials cost more than expected. It became expensive because an unqualified draftsman designed a first-of-its-kind fire suppression system that nobody noticed didn't work until weeks before opening, and then spent 9 years tearing out finished infrastructure and rebuilding it, which is always several times more expensive than building it correctly the first time. Number 4. The San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge Eastern Span replacement began with a $250 million budget estimate in the early 1990s. By completion in 2013, the final cost exceeded $6.5 billion, a 26-fold overrun on a structure that was specifically designed to be the earthquake-proof successor to a bridge damaged in the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake. The central engineering failure was anchor bolts. 32 high-strength steel anchor rods, each nearly 3 inches in diameter and designed to hold the road deck to the bridge's seismic safety system, were found to have cracked after installation. Some of the bolts snapped before the bridge even carried a single vehicle in public service. Investigators traced the failures to hydrogen embrittlement, a phenomenon where high-strength steel absorbs hydrogen during galvanizing and becomes brittle under sustained load, a known risk that had not been adequately considered in the specification process. The California Department of Transportation then discovered falsified quality control documents from the Chinese manufacturing facility that had produced components. Engineers had to design emergency workarounds, installing replacement hardware in configurations that had never been tested under seismic load, because replacing the original anchor system outright would have required demolishing sections of the bridge already in service. The Wall Street perspective. The original cost estimate of $250 million was produced before anyone had fully decided what to build. The first detailed engineering estimate came in at $1.4 billion. What followed was a case study in the compounding cost of lost confidence. Once a project's structural integrity is genuinely in question, every subsequent inspection multiplies. Every repair requires independent verification, and the legal, reputational, and engineering costs of doubt accumulate into billions that no original budget ever anticipated. Number 3. Boston's Big Dig was the most expensive highway project in American history when it launched. A plan to reroute Interstate 93 underground through the center of Boston, replacing an elevated highway that had divided the city since the 1950s. The original estimate was $2.8 billion. The final cost exceeded $15 billion, making it the largest cost overrun on a domestic infrastructure project in American history. But the most consequential failure wasn't the budget. It was a decision that saved a few $1,000s on the wrong line item. In the ceiling panels of the Interstate 90 connector tunnel, engineers specified an epoxy anchor system to suspend 26-ton concrete ceiling panels above an active 4-lane highway. Contractors used a fast-setting epoxy, Powers Fasteners A22 system, which was cheaper and quicker than the specified materials, but which had a documented failure mode under sustained tensile load called creep. The adhesive slowly deforms and releases its grip over time. In July 2006, a section of ceiling panels weighing approximately 26 tons fell onto a car traveling through the tunnel, killing a passenger. Investigation revealed that the anchor system had been failing progressively for years before the collapse, that the design had reduced the number of bolts per anchor below the specification, and that inspections had not identified the deterioration. The legal settlements, emergency repairs, and reinspection program that followed added hundreds of millions to a project already billions over budget. The Wall Street lesson is the oldest one in engineering economics. Every dollar saved on a safety margin during construction has a potential liability attached to it that no quantity surveyor ever writes into the original budget, because its magnitude is impossible to forecast until after the ceiling falls. Number 2. In 2014, France's national rail operator, SNCF, ordered 2,000 new TER regional trains under a fleet modernization program. The trains were wider than the models they replaced, which was accounted for in the specifications. What was not adequately accounted for was that 1,300 stations across the French rail network had been built before 1930, using platform measurements from an era when trains were narrower, and that measurement data set had not been included in the specification process. When the first new trains were delivered and tested, operators discovered that the trains could not safely clear the platform edges at hundreds of older stations across the country. France faced a binary choice: modify or replace 2,000 trains that had already been manufactured, or modify the physical infrastructure of 1,300 stations. The infrastructure modification program cost approximately $68 million, but that figure, widely reported as the cost of the mistake, dramatically understates the actual financial damage, which includes the total cost of the delayed fleet deployment, contractual penalties, and the operational disruption to one of Europe's busiest rail networks. The total program cost, once full fleet acquisition and remediation are included, exceeded $20.5 billion. The Wall Street lesson requires no complex engineering analysis. The measurement data that would have prevented the most expensive measurement error in European infrastructure history was sitting in an archive. Someone's job was to check it. Nobody checked it. A few forgotten centimeters in an archive nobody consulted became a billion-dollar national humiliation. Number 1. On April 20th, 2010, the Deepwater Horizon drilling rig operating in the Gulf of Mexico experienced a well blowout while drilling BP's Macondo prospect, approximately 40 miles off the Louisiana coast at a water depth of 5,000 feet. 11 workers were killed in the explosion. The rig sank 36 hours later. What followed was the largest accidental marine oil spill in history. 4.9 million barrels of crude oil released into the Gulf of Mexico over 87 days before the well was finally capped. The blowout preventer, a 300-ton hydraulic device installed at the wellhead specifically to seal the well in exactly this scenario, failed to function when activated. Post-incident investigation revealed that the device had known mechanical deficiencies that had not been adequately addressed, that BP engineers had overridden recommendations from Halliburton to use additional centralizers that would have improved cement seal quality around the wellbore, and that the decision to remove drilling mud from the riser pipe before setting a final cement plug, a decision that reduced the hydrostatic pressure holding the well, had been made despite objections from on-site personnel. The Presidential Commission investigating the disaster concluded that the decisions that led to the blowout reflected systemic failures in risk management. The financial consequences exceeded anything the oil industry had previously experienced. BP's cleanup operations, legal settlements with the U.S. government and private claimants, natural resource damage assessments, and ongoing liabilities pushed the total financial cost beyond $65 billion, the equivalent of wiping out a major corporation's entire market capitalization. The Wall Street perspective is the one that makes this entry different from every other disaster on this list. Berlin-Brandenburg Airport failed because nobody coordinated thousands of subcontractors. The Bay Bridge failed because nobody tested the bolts under the right conditions. The Big Dig failed because somebody chose cheaper epoxy. The SNCF trains failed because nobody checked the archive. Deepwater Horizon failed because experienced engineers raised safety concerns and management overrode them. The most expensive construction mistake in human history wasn't caused by technical ignorance. It was caused by a decision made by people who knew the risks to proceed anyway. That is a different category of failure entirely, and it is the most expensive one. And there you have it, the 5 construction mistakes that proved one bad engineering decision can erase billions of dollars in value. Which one shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe for more billionaire-level engineering stories, and I'll see you in the next one.